First, recruitment is led by the YSO. 70% of those recruited are women, and youth leaders are selected from the communities where they will be deployed. Host organizations or training centers should be identified before deployment, and the recruitment process takes a minimum of 2 months. This process includes a call for applications, shortlisting, interviews, and contracting. Next is family and community engagement. Youth leaders, with support from YSO and YLO partners, engage regularly with family members, such as husbands and parents, as well as influential community members, including religious leaders and influencers. This engagement starts at the outset and continues throughout implementation to raise awareness, clarify the project's value, address concerns limiting participation, and tackle misconceptions around young women's leadership, entrepreneurship, and disability inclusion. Following recruitment, youth leaders are onboarded through a one-day event. During onboarding, youth leaders are introduced to the program, including its duration, deliverables, responsibilities, expectations, and tools. They are also introduced to the courses they will be taking. Day 0 is a virtual induction event for all youth leaders. Youth leaders also complete self-paced learning before contracting. They are enrolled on the Moodle Learning Management System, use their own tools to learn, and may receive data bundle support from YSOs. This self-paced learning phase takes 5 days to complete. Next is the training of trainers, which also happens before contracting. Youth leaders are invited to the TOT after completing their self-paced learning on Moodle. All content is provided by DOT, with contextualization as needed, and it is delivered either face-to-face or in a hybrid format. The training of trainers is hybrid and requires a minimum of 2 weeks. During the youth leader training of trainers, YSO and YLO partners play a critical role in preparing youth leaders for effective and inclusive program delivery. First, YSO and YLO partners will adapt and apply best practices for the recruitment and retention of young women. These best practices are shared by DOT in the Guidance for Mobilization of Youth Peers. Partners are expected to actively use this guidance and update their digital content and outreach approaches as needed to ensure young women are reached effectively. In addition, partners will ensure that these approaches also reach other marginalized groups of young people, including persons with disabilities. To support this, YSO and YLO partners will leverage local community-based women's rights organizations, village savings and loan associations, business associations, influential community leaders, academic institutions, and other community-based organizations that can support outreach and engagement with young women and young people with disabilities. Before engagement in the Going Beyond program, YSO and YLO partners will ensure that all youth leaders sign a youth leader contract. They will also ensure that youth leaders sign consent forms for image use authorization prior to their participation. Furthermore, all youth leaders must sign off on DOT's Code of Conduct. This is done after completing the required training on Introduction to Safeguarding, Protection from Sexual Exploitation and Abuse, also known as PSEA, and Code of Conduct training. Once signed, the Code of Conduct must be uploaded into the learning platform or directly signed on Conductor. In addition to this, all youth leaders must sign the Child Protection Policy, as they will be engaging with youth peers who have children. Partners must also ensure that throughout the program, all individuals who have access to children within the host organization sign the Child Protection Policy. This includes childcare practitioners, youth peers, host organization staff, and any other relevant personnel. YSO and YLO partners will then take all youth leaders through an intensive training of trainers. This training onboards youth leaders on DOT's programmatic content with a strong focus on facilitation skills. This includes adult-centered learning approaches, experiential learning methodologies, and coaching techniques. During the training of trainers, all youth leaders will also be trained on DOT's PSEA policy, code of conduct, and safeguarding scenarios. They will be supported to fully understand going beyond safeguarding procedures and how to apply them in real implementation contexts. Where needed, YSO and YLOs will provide youth leaders with vetted hotel accommodation during the 10-day in-person training of trainers. In addition, YSO and YLO partners will provide childcare support for youth leaders who require it during the training of trainers, using the guidance outlined in the Child Care Support Guidelines and Standard Operating Procedures. Throughout youth leader deployment, YSO and YLO partners will carry out regular one-on-one check-ins. They will also foster opportunities for youth leaders to support their peers and share successful strategies and best practices for inclusion. Finally, YSO and YLO partners will provide refresher training on safeguarding policies and procedures between Youth Peer Cohort 1 and Youth Peer Cohort 2, ensuring continued compliance and reinforcement of safeguarding standards. The deployment phase lasts for 6 months. Deployment happens immediately after the completion of the training of trainers. However, it is important to note that contracting takes place before deployment begins. Once deployed, youth leaders return to their own communities and assign training centers where they begin implementing program activities. During this phase, mobilization of youth peers takes place, ensuring that participants are engaged and ready to take part in the program. To ensure effective learning and quality engagement, it is recommended that each cohort includes no more than 25 participants per youth leader. Now, during the deployment of youth leaders and the delivery of the Digital Business Program, it is essential to clearly understand what Going Beyond youth leaders and partners need to plan and budget for. First, Going Beyond partners will plan for the effective mobilization of youth peers. This includes intentional planning for family engagement and broader community engagement, ensuring that youth leaders are supported to mobilize participants successfully and deliver the digital business program effectively within their communities. In addition, partners will plan for the completion of individualized assessments for youth leaders who identify as persons with disabilities. These assessments are conducted to determine specific accommodation needs, and partners are expected to follow the project guidance for providing appropriate and inclusive accommodations. Partners will also plan for individualized assessments for youth leaders who identify childcare needs. Based on these assessments, partners will follow the Going Beyond Child Care Support Guidelines and Standard Operating Procedures to establish localized childcare solutions. These solutions must support youth leaders both during the training of trainers and throughout the deployment period. Finally, YSLO and YLO partners will ensure they remain responsive to the inclusion needs of both youth leaders and youth peers in their communities. This includes establishing clear feedback mechanisms with youth leaders to identify emerging challenges during mobilization and training delivery, and ensuring that adequate resources are in place to address these challenges effectively. At the end of the program, achievements are celebrated through a one-day graduation event. Youth leaders are recognized for their efforts and awarded a certificate of completion, celebrating their journey over the 8 months.